and the gradual preparation of humanity with a fast gradualness to the presence of the extraterrestrials as they are today, right? And of all that they have been in the past, because they have it. I mean, the summits of the world government have this information. Michael is the captain of the heavenly armies, alright? In the terminology of the cosmic brotherhood, his name is Ashtar Sheran. Most of us who, well, have already a certain age, we are going to die during the period of the Great Tribulation. In the past decades, when there was talk of the two beasts, it was thought of the American and the Soviet Russian power, right? And still nowadays someone keeps saying this pagan claim. However, it must be also said that we were at the time of the Cold War, so this was a very plausible explanation. But then, if you read the bio, you'll see that one works in close dependency of the other. Therefore, they cannot be antagonistic, because they support each other, as we said before. Yes, actually, one works as advertising agency for the other, that's to say, the beast out of the earth. Then John calls them with these names. One the beast, the other the false prophet, because in reality, this is what they are. Then, as I was saying, John doesn't talk anymore about these two beasts. He mentions one and makes the other the false prophet. Thus, in the exegetical view of many great evangelistic and Protestant scholars, who are really good, Catholic scholars as well, these two entities represent these two figures, called Antichrist, or anyway this sort of guy who will be anyway at the top levels of the world government, and his false prophet, his advertising agent. At this point he could even be a religious leader. They will be like the two operatives who are going to dominate the scene, especially in the key years when, as I told you, mankind will have to make a choice. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. And I saw three unclean spirits that looked like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. Book of Revelation by John. One of the things which had intrigued me the most during that meeting we held in Lamezia was that wonderful picture presented by you during your report, with this vision of the rapture, of the withdrawal by our cosmic brothers, the rapture of that part of humanity who has somehow followed the laws of the Spirit. Let's close with your description of this moment, the way you have understood it, a moment actually of true redemption, of salvation of the human race, or actually that part of the human race, I mean. What's your idea? What's your take about it? It's rather complex. Anyway, we are talking about what St. Paul calls the rapture in his famous letter to the Thessalonians, and about withdrawals, about which Jesus also talks in the Gospels. I tell you, on that night, two people will be in one bed. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left. Two men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. Through my insights and obviously my study and my survey of the scriptures and whatnot, I got the idea that there are going to be two types of withdrawal. One will apply to the 1,400, who are basically the spirits who have been selected, because chosen ones mean selected, who have accompanied Christ, right? Beyond ethnicity, religion, and stuff, but we are talking about people who, in any case, have made history, who have given pearls of wisdom and knowledge over the course of at least these 2 millennia, and who have followed the Christic Advent. As you were noticing while making reference to Bruce Pennington's painting from the famous book A Shadows, to which Eugenio introduced us many years ago, writes, these people will be taken and will be given a new body during the rapture. How St. Paul describes it, he clearly describes it like this. It will be immortal, as opposed to the mortal one, incorruptible and undefiled, as opposed to corruptible and defiled. Then there are going to be the traditional withdrawals, which is what lots of people aspire to and dream of, alright? Those are going to be withdrawals of bodies in the flesh, so to speak. In the same picture, he puts the two types of raptures next to each other. Here's the acumen and the precision of this artist, who has been, by the way, contacted and driven to draw these artboards. However, in my opinion, they are going to be, for the most part, children, young people and youngsters, and there's a reason for that. But we would delve into something that many people don't tell and many others don't want to hear. The reason for that is to be used as a seed of rebirth for the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth. What is it? The famous heaven of the many initiates, dreamers, the pure north of the simple, of the pure, of the thirsty after righteousness, of the persecuted. Heaven is not only Christ, but also the kingdom of 1,000 years, which will be already an apprenticeship of redemption for 1,000 years, which are not symbolic, but they are really 1,000 years. It will take place after the culmination or the end of the events of the Great Tribulation, so to speak. These, I mean the children, these are the ones who will have to call many others back to life. So, as they say in football, you are also giving me an assist to reiterate something else which is important for it to be explained to people. We often hear about an imminent massive contact with the extraterrestrials, who are, as we know, the angelic militia, so to speak. Here, let's use also this word, just so you understand. A contact with the humanity of planet Earth, right? Now, massive contact is not that easy to happen because it requires very specific and precise conditions. First of all, it takes the agreement and the desire, the approval of this humanity, or better to say, of a significant mass, of a significant critical mass, as they say, or at least the agreement of the pro-tempore representatives of humanity, so of their real leaders. And furthermore, it takes a few conditions: total cessation of military proliferation, therefore nuclear proliferation too, cessation of monopolies, and the gradual preparation of humanity, with a fast gradualness, to the extraterrestrials as they are today, right? And of all that they have been in the past, because they have it. I mean, the summits of the world government have this information. There are the old proposals, which have been made 50, 60 years ago. The most famous case is that of Eisenhower when he was present at Holloman Air Force Base in 1954. So, if these conditions are not met, it would be, as always, a kind of interference, or, in other words, of violation of what we call free will. So, as for massive contacts, we should proceed with caution, in my view. They will intervene, if that's the case of an extreme danger for the planet rather than for humanity. So, yes, they already told us, but it's difficult for it to happen. According to me and to common sense, what might happen is instead an increase of special manifestations of their, let's say, operating presence on Earth. But as things stand now, with the monopolies on this side and those who mean to slave humanity over here, there cannot be any massive contact. It would be a tremendous violation and, let's say, a terrible abomination. As well as I mean, about those who think that the extraterrestrials are going to come, and then because they believe in the extraterrestrials, they'll get on the starship, and then they will have a cocktail at the bar, and later they'll swim in the pool, or, I don't know, go to the starship sauna. No, it's not like that. It won't be like that. Only very few people will be taken. So, to those who foster this kind of illusion of easy massive contacts and of an easy salvation in the flesh, I say, keep your feet on the ground and do not delude the people. So I will cast her on a bed of suffering, and I will make those who commit adultery with her suffer intensely, unless they repent of her ways. I will strike her children dead. Then all the churches will know that I am he who searches hearts and minds, and I will repay each of you according to your deeds. Book of Revelation by John. I'm quite convinced, and my opinion is supported also by Revelation's prophecies, so to speak, but also by many private revelations. As you know, there are some from Christ to the present day, right? Through mystics, seers, and so on. Most of us who, well, have already a certain age, we are going to die during the period of the Great Tribulation. I know it sounds bad, but no one is born and no one dies. We will have another experience somewhere else. And that's the truth too. However, it has also to be said that it will be a great time of choice, which, again, will be given to everyone with sufficient awareness. The choice to stay on this side or the other side. Whoever loses their life or our life, for me, as Jesus said, will find it. Whoever instead wants to save their life, certainly not for what he represents in terms of cosmic and spiritual values, but for something else, then they lose it. You have no idea how true these words are, expressed also by John in their simplicity at the beginning of the 1,000-year-old kingdom. Anyway, it would be a long story, but this is the truth. So, what matters most in life? Then we should also understand what are the most important things, because, when in the end there will be the judgment, right? Everyone talks about the judgment. And, of course, they confuse what is going to be the judgment of the day of the sun, as Eugenio used to say, which is different from the one of the day of the Father, of the soul or cosmic being. That one will be the universal final judgment in about 1,200 years, and not earlier as far as I've figured out. However, this is definitely a very important memo of spiritual nature. The judgment of the Son, which is going to happen now, will be a judgment of separation after the story is over. It shall not be based on those who survived, although there will be also the survivors. Those who have managed to survive will also be taken. They will be few, not many, I mean in the physical body. Most of them, or us, will be dead. The judgment will be carried out on these ones, on the souls, as described in the 20th chapter of Revelation, in the verses which explain it all, about the resurrection of the living and the dead, and so on. And then this judgment will be a judgment of separation. We say judgment because we want to use this word. Then we can also wonder in a way which is conceptually more suited to, let's say, modern logic. It will be a judgment of separation between those who must go to the kingdom of 1,000 years, who are not 5 or 10 and not even 7 millions. But I believe there will be many more, and those who instead cannot go there, and they will be forced not to eternal damnation, as they write because of a clumsy translation, since aion does not mean eternal. However, they will be forced to damage for a long time. Damnation means damage for a long time, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth, as Jesus said, because the regret and the sorrow for having missed an opportunity so much within reach to be redeemed, for all that this word means and implies. This regret will be great and tremendous. Some speak of disgrace, some of blame. Jesus uses the expression wailing and grinding of teeth. For 1,000 years they will be prevented from coming to life. The other ones, those who pass, those who are deemed eligible, as Revelation says, they will come to life. They will live. They will come back to life in the kingdom of 1,000 years. Of course, to come to life, to come back to life, that's what the Greek verb oizao precisely means, to live, to come to life. But it will not be because just like that, with a snap, you who are an entity without the material body against the law of spirit and matter, not at all. It means that you'll be reborn, right? This is an interpretation you have never heard of, but I believe it is the right one. I have not made it up, it was suggested to me. So, as I was saying earlier, the chosen ones will be called back to life by those who have been taken previously, young people, youngsters, children, and a few grown-ups, and then they will face a cycle of birth, death, there will be death anyway, and rebirth, although we can assume that probably life might be lengthened during this period. That's it, we will not be immortal beings or beings without any type of problem. No, these 1,000 years will be a kingdom which has been called the heaven of God on earth, during which man will be for sure helped because he has been selected to do things he never did before. So energy, economic development, it will also be integrated to start journeys in the cosmos. Through cosmic instructors they will send us. The wisdom of the Spirit will be taught as the basis of all knowledge. In short, all that we can imagine in such a science fiction scenario, but it will be very nice. The others, and I close it here, all those who instead have not been allowed to come to life because they have not been deemed eligible for 1,000 years of damage or whatever it is, I mean of corrective punishment, because that's what it is, at the stroke of the end of 1,000 years, they will come to life. That's what John says. There's no eternal damnation. They will come to life in order to participate in the last great selection. One last thing, allow me to say it because this is key. The famous judgment of separation in the day of the sun that we have talked about earlier. Do you know what it is? It's the one Jesus refers to when, in the Gospel of Matthew, he will put some on his right and the others on his left. Right? And he will not ask them, "How great were you sitting and talking with a microphone in your hand for 4 hours straight?" Or "How many lectures did you give?" Or "How many churches?" He will simply ask them, "When I was hungry, did you give me something to eat? When I was thirsty, did you give me something to drink? When I was sick, did you came to visit me? Did you look after me? When I needed clothes, did you clothe me?" Right? This is what he will ask. Of course, these are literally material categories. But it's not only that, because there are hungry and thirsty of a different nature, there are naked of a different nature, and there are spiritual sick. That's it. Did you do all of this? Because this is what really matters. The deeds which afterwards will come around in the end, in the last judgment. Because it's not like John, he wrote according to their deeds in Revelation. Therefore, it's the simple deeds. How much love were you able to give to your neighbor? How much suffering were you able to relieve, all right? With your smile, with your glances, with your deeds, with your words. How much goodness were you able to convey with the intents and intentions of your thoughts and therefore of your actions? As it's always said, it's also the ability to love and consequently the capacity to forgive too. Here, these are simple, basic, fundamental values which will ensure that so many, I hope billions of people, will achieve the eligibility to this epochal transition. These words are trustworthy and true. The Lord, the God who inspires the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants the things that must soon take place. Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written in it, for the time is near. Book of Revelation by John. This stage of preparation and transition before all this happens. We've already got the opportunity to hear about this figure of the celestial workers. That's to say, about some people who somehow prepare for the advent of this new reality with their work and mission. Is there any mention of this figure of, let's call it in quotes, the celestial worker in a few passages? That's to say, someone who somehow helps to understand. I believe that, I believe that, you could be one of them. Definitely. Why not? Worker of the things of heaven, all right? Of the things of the soul, of the things of earth. I believe we are many. There were a few, but nowadays, shall we say, the awakening is a little more massive. What I see is that many who wake up in their turn, of course by being able to process at least the central core, which we have been talking about earlier, that is love, which is what all revelation is all about. Because there cannot be any revelation or knowledge which does not include the heart. Because, of course, you need to talk heart to heart. Then, once you've done this, everyone in turn becomes, say, a repeater or a worker of heaven for the others. And that's the beauty of the time of Michael. What is it? I would like to quote this too. The time of Michael is a way I've called a special time which runs from 1945 to the present day, which goes back to a prophecy of Daniel. As you well know, Daniel, John, Nostradamus, Paul. That's a nice family right there. They are very important prophecies. Daniel, Isaiah, of course, also Ezekiel, but Daniel especially fits very well with Revelation and John. Anyway, in chapter 12, he's on the banks of the Tigris River, and there's I don't know if he's Gabriel, there's an archangel who is revealing prophecies which relate to his time, the near future, and our time, which is that of the eschatological events, which is this time right here, and this is what he says, I know it by our heart. That time, which is our time, this time, shall rise Michael, the great prince who has charge of your people. When he says your people, he means the Hebrew one for the time of that revelation. Today it's the people of Christ, who has charge of your people. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth, a very fine expression of saying that many of those who are not incarnated and who are expected to reincarnate in the medium or long term, many of those shall awake. Awakening means coming to life by incarnating. Some of them in order to benefit from this joy of life for a long time, which is written as an undefined long time, the most faithful translations, while in our Italian Catholic translation is written as eternal. Others will suffer a reproach, a blame, and a damage of an undefined long time. This is referring to what's going to happen after the story is over. As I told you before, when there will be, let's say, the separation, this would also explain the reason of this big, huge population explosion, which has been taking place for the past several decades, because we are getting close to an event which is epochal and decisive for the fate of lots of people on Earth. This is what I have understood by, let's say, those words, and so on. I should also like to say one last thing. This book right here, together with Massimo Lombardo, who has been its inspirer, and two more collaborators that you can see down here, Filippo Bongiovanni and Mirella Santamato, who is a researcher too. This is a book we have written about the return of Christ, right? It's new in its genre. Emphatically, I wrote that with regards to hermeneutics and for sure to exegesis, it's one of the very first, if not, I would say, the first one in 2000 years, because it deals with the eschatologic events, the return of Christ and the end of times in the light I was telling you earlier, which perhaps I didn't make it clear, that's to say, in the light of the time of Michael. Who is Michael? I haven't explained it before. Michael is the chief of the heavenly armies, alright? In the terminology of the Cosmic Brotherhood, his name is Ashtar Sharon, because he's an archangel of light, and he can anyway take a body whenever he wants. He's a multidimensional being, humanoid of the fourth dimension or whatever. We have been knowing him as Ashtar Sharon since 1950 to the present day. Ashtar Sharon was the one who, through the first ones who contacted him, such as, for example, Spear, Imaginistic Circle member, or Fantassel, the one who has brought the basic and major knowledge of the Cosmic Brotherhood, which then brought about a spiritual sensitivity. And mind you, it must be said too, this led millions and millions of people, and maybe even more, to awakening. This type of new knowledge tells us about the interaction with our cosmic brothers, by also relating them with our past history. So, we are in the time of Michael, in the time of the Cosmic Brotherhood, and we are also in the time which is a prelude to the famous return of Christ.